Hi, I'm Lori Jones, president of Avasec Communications in Colorado and host of the Integrate and Ignite Marketing podcast. Join me and my guests, some of the world's top innovators, disruptors, and visionaries, as we explore bold and brave marketing strategies for scaling and growing your brand. Today's guest is Lars Grønnegaard, an exceptional VP of Product turned CEO and co-founder of Dreamdata, a revenue attribution platform. As a startup founder, Lars is focused on creating a product that helps businesses be successful in their go-to-market strategies by enabling data-driven decision-making. Before Dreamdata, Lars spent 5 years at Trustpilot, where he was an instrumental part in building a fantastic product that recently ended up joining the European Unicorn Club of the London Stock Exchange. Join Lars and me as we talk about data, but it's more than just data, it's Dreamdata. Listen and you'll learn about how he launched and grew his company with just an idea and a handful of customers, the challenges dealing with data silos between different marketing automation platforms and ad platforms, why selling software in the current economy has become more difficult as people demand more serious dream data, how to find your ideal customer, why brands need to focus on creating use cases and value rather than just features of their product, how to bring all that data together to optimize marketing campaigns toward revenue and make things as ready as possible for sales through automation, and tips for marketing leaders working with engineers. Thank you so much for joining us on the Integrate and Ignite podcast. Welcome to the Integrate and Ignite podcast. I am so excited to have Lars Grønnegaard with us today. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Lori. Great to be on the show.
So how do you feel about the pronunciation of your last name?
I think you did really well.
Thank you. we rehearsed that. Yeah, and we rehearsed it going into the show. Jones is so much easier.
It is a lot easier.
Well, I'm so excited to chit chat with you today. Before we dive into some really important topics, go ahead and share with us your background.
Yeah, so I'm Lars. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Dreamdata. Prior to that, I worked in product management in a Danish company. I'm from Denmark, so
really?
Yes, quite far away from Denver.
Yeah, but Denmark. Hey, DNDN. Yay.
Yeah, there's something there. So I'm from Copenhagen, Denmark, and used to be heading product at sort of unicorn out of Copenhagen called Trustpilot. We actually had a sales office in Denver, so I've been to Denver a few times.
Right.
So I worked in the product team there. Prior to that, I did various consulting type of companies, mostly in the UX space, so user experience space. We founded one of the first UX labs in Copenhagen before anybody actually said UX.
Wow.
Yeah, then went on to found a company with one of my colleagues from Trustpilot, and that's Dreamdata, where I work now.
Yeah, well, I tell you, it's really exciting. You have, been on the product development side and rolled up your sleeves with obviously a very, very, well-known international company, Trustpilot. And you've been, beside the teams, the entrepreneur who started it, so on and so forth. And now you are, you have your own company. What was it at Trustpilot that really interested you about starting your own company?
I think like being in a successful startup makes you very interested in sort of trying that journey, but being in the driver's seat, because you see the people leading the company, you always think I can do better than that.
Yeah.
See if we can, but I think it is inspiring to be in a successful startup and see that journey. So I think that was one end of it, sort of the desire to found and try this startup journey.
Right.
And the other side of it, of course, there's always an idea or a product, like what are you going to do? And that also came out of the work we did at Trustpilot. So we worked in the product. So me and my co-founder, we worked in the product and tech team. And Trustpilot is sort of a mixed go-to-market. So the way, like the actual product that is sold is actually a B2B SaaS product. So there's like a subscription-based product. And the sort of the path to sell that product goes through, of course, sales, and outbound sales is also, if there are any of the people who work at Trustpilot, yeah, there's a lot of outbound sales at
Right.
Trustpilot. That's marketing. So there, like when it's 4 years back when I worked there, but there was still quite a big marketing team and quite a substantial marketing budget.
Right.
And the product itself. So the product itself, because it's a review platform, so people will come and write reviews of companies, and basically those companies will then discover that somebody wrote a review and engage and then become a lead for the sales team. So there's sort of a beautiful cycle there of somebody using the product, driving new people into the platform that then become leads for the sales team. And that's a beautiful virtuous cycle when it works.
Yeah, it really is. What did you take from that experience that you've really embedded into your new business?
So I think what was exciting about that type of go-to-market motion is that it can at least be very, very automated. Of course, there's actual sales, but the rest of it, sort of the funneling of people into a sales team, can be highly automated. And of course, some of the sales can also be automated, sort of at a lower price point, a simple product. You can sell B2B fully automated.
Right.
So it was sort of this exposure to an automated or semi-automated B2B go-to-market motion that was very exciting. But behind that, there were lots of things that made that very complicated. You can say we've had automated go-to-market in B2C for a long time, and there's lots of products for it, and it works really well.
Right.
30 years ago, you wanted to buy a TV, you'd go to a shop, you'd talk to someone. Now you go to Amazon, you click a button, and you get a TV, and you don't talk to any salespeople. So there's been a lot of maturing of the sort of automated go-to-market in B2C. But in B2B, that hasn't happened to the same extent. There is, of course, automation, there's lots of tools, but fundamentally, each of these tools will produce its own sort of silo of data. And it's very hard to bring the data from the marketing automation platform into the CRM system, or get your product tracking data into your marketing automation system, or the ad platform data into any of those systems. So it all lives in silos where you can look at the data, but if you want to be really successful, you need to bring the data together so that you can have a holistic view of the customer. And that was what we were lacking at Trustpilot. I think we were doing what most people do. You get along with what you can, but we wanted something that gave sort of a holistic view of the customer. And we went looking for a product that would unify this data, and it didn't really exist. There were, of course, lots of products that would help us. Sort of a data warehouse is, of course, a great thing. There are things that can move data. There's lots of data products, but once you bought all the different data products, you still had to get people to work and put them, in a long project to clean the data, put the data together, throw the duplicates away, enrich with this data source that everybody thinks is super important. So it's so much work.
Right.
And it felt a bit like something that shouldn't be a sort of a do-it-yourself project, because it was quite standard. We were using Salesforce, we were using HubSpot, a product for tracking called Segment, which is also very well known and used. So it was a standard setup. We were buying ads from Google ads and Facebook ads and LinkedIn ads, like very standard.
All the above, yeah.
Yeah. So, lots of B2B companies are doing this. So why was it so, why wasn't there a product that would just put the whole thing together and solve our problem? It didn't exist.
Well, and excuse me, hence Dreamdata. So you're working at Trustpilot, you're experiencing these problems, and the light bulb goes off that there's got to be a better way. At what point did you say, okay, I'm going to go do this. I'm going to go out on my own and build this brand and this company, and moreover, meet the need and the pain points of what so many people experience day in and day out?
I think one of the key things was we did a huge, bringing all this data together. We did a huge project for marketing, which was really about sort of optimizing campaigns, but towards revenue. And that required this data to come together. And that felt like a very solid use case and something that lots of people will want to do, because, lots of people are spending lots of money on marketing.
Right.
And not having really an adequate way of optimizing all that spend felt like a very big problem. And we also saw other things with this data that were sort of obvious use cases, but this one felt like a big one. And I would say that, and then also when you found that, like, at least our idea of founding a company was, okay, you have this idea for a product, then you will go and test it. So you go and pitch it to people, typically in your network or people you can get access to, and figure out if do they feel that this is also a problem, and like, one thing is, do they feel it's a problem, but also would they actually pay you to solve this problem?
There's that piece of it.
That's super important, because if you don't have that validation that somebody will pay for whatever solution you come up with, then it's just a great idea and not a business, right?
Yeah.
So
you obviously got the validation.
Yes.
And so you're engineering the product, you're developing the product, you get the validation, you're talking to customers. What did you do next to ultimately take the big leap to where you are right now?
I think at that point we left Trustpilot and founded the company.
Yeah.
Also, I would say if you're founding a company, you want to be careful about who owns the intellectual property that you're bringing in. So you can't do a lot of work somewhere else before you
absolutely. There's the IP piece that's important.
And you say, we continued this path of basically now signing contracts, getting people to commit. We didn't have a product, so we just had slides. And of course, we had an idea about how to deliver it, like the use case that we were selling. But the actual thing we would deliver to someone, we try to deliver something that we thought we could build as a product, but it was basically consulting,
right?
Because we're building it per customer. So you end up with a handful of customers, and they are not in a product. It's like, oh, there's a project here, project here, project here, but they're all validation of your thesis that this is an interesting product. And one of the people we did this to was then the third co-founder who came. He was then in a marketing team in another Copenhagen startup, and then he joined. And I think we were not from a marketing background, any of us. We were from this product and tech background. And then Stefan joined, who was from a true marketing background, and was one of the key, represents one of the key personas that we sell to. So he joined.
Yeah. I love the fact that, it was the number 3, a marketing lead was the number 3 person in the business, because typically, and a lot of times for good reason, those marketing leads, are number 10, number 12, number 50. And I love the fact that you saw the need for marketing very early on. I mean, it makes some sense because you're building a product to market to marketers. So I understand that piece of it, but really, in most situations, tech drives, everything to begin with. So what were, you're making these decisions. What was one of the key, ideas that you had behind hiring marketing as number 3, and the importance that you placed on it?
I think, if you think of the foundational thesis of the product is really helping B2B companies do this automated go-to-market.
Right.
Use cases on top of that we deliver, but underneath it, there's this vision that B2B companies should be able to do an automated go-to-market. And one of the big parts of doing an automated go-to-market is marketing. I think marketing is sales at scale, at least you can think of it as that. And in that sense, we didn't want to be we wanted to have this, at least some form of automation early on in our own go-to-market. And that means you have to have marketing.
Right.
You have to bring in marketing as a minimum. If it's a SaaS or tech product, you can also do things like offer the product in the sales process, either as a trial or a free version, or the different ways of doing that. So we wanted those components in our go-to-market so that we would ourselves be doing, I would say, a modern go-to-market. So as automated as possible, because we're still a very young company. So there's in our go-to-market, there's lots of things that are not automated. I don't think we'll ever be like automated. Doesn't necessarily mean fully automated. It just means, make things as ready as possible as you can for sales.
Right. What was one of the first really deliverables that you felt was very important for marketing to start working on?
I think so Stefan is I would say a very practical marketer.
Right.
So basically, you can think of demand gen. So acquiring customers and acquiring sort of finding people that were interested in our product.
Yeah.
So that would
Getting those hands to say me.
content.
Yeah.
Content. We went at some point, it was a little bit later than the founding. We went quite aggressively on LinkedIn because marketers spend a lot of time on LinkedIn, especially B2B marketers out there. So it's a great place to engage with an audience if you are selling to marketers. So if you are marketers, it's a good place to be, and it's a good place to engage with the people that you're working for. So that was one of the big sort of, you can call it sort of micro content. That was a big thing we did early on, and are still doing.
How did you end up transitioning sales into the queue, or like an actual inside sales, outside sales, or is it truly more demand gen and all automated, online?
No. I mean, you can't, like many B2B companies, you can't actually buy the product without talking to sales.
Good.
I mean, if you send us a check, we will allow it, but in general, you have to talk to sales.
Right.
Which makes sense also. It's also it's a young product, so it makes sense that you also want to talk to someone who can help.
You've that consultative selling piece is a big part of the process. Yeah.
Yeah.
What
Absolutely.
stage is the business in now?
So we're at about 100 customers. So we came out of raising Series A. So it's like early scaling, you can say.
Early scaling.
Early scaling, yeah. So the traditional journey is like you'll do sort of founder-led sales. We transitioned out of founder-led sales a couple of years ago and started building a sales team that could take over from founders.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say
that's always a great feeling, isn't it?
That was I think because none of us came from a sales background, it was very interesting to see that sort of sales org materializing. We hired a couple of really fantastic salespeople, people we believed in, but we didn't really know anything about sales. Of course, we saw it, but we were always on the outside of a sales organization. So we hired and had this sort of fairly long process where we figured out, okay, how do you actually sell this product when you're not the founder?
Right.
You are, a sales exec or an account exec. Like, how do you actually sell the product? So that was it was a sort of experimental. We spent quite a bit of time trying things that didn't work until we figured out how to make it work.
Well, and what's interesting about what you're saying is, every entrepreneurial company out there deals with that, right? I mean, they get to that point where they're like, the CEO, the CTO, the chief engineer, whatever the position might be, they can't continue to scale the business being the front man or woman. And what's interesting about that is timing, right? And the timing is different for each company. And I'm sure that it changes with product as well. What are some of the lessons that you learned on and how did you get to the point of best practices so that sales and trusted advisors within the sales arena could ultimately take over and do the job that you and the team had been doing?
I think one of the things was patience, because you're bringing people in and you can barely sell the product yourself.
Oh, so true.
You're selling it on a lot of enthusiasm and sort of you built this thing, so you know everything about it, so you can carry a lot with that, and you need a lot of patience, even if if the people you bring in are good at sales, they're probably not good at sales exactly the way it's going to happen in your company, right?
Right.
patience was important. One of the things, like, we didn't hire people on sort of a typical sales compensation plan initially. We hired people on a fixed salary and warrants. So like,
yeah, that's how most companies start.
But also to sort of tie those two guys, like as a man and a woman, we wanted to tie them into the company and say, okay, of course we want you to be successful at sales, but first and foremost, we want the company to be successful. So you have to accept that we're going to try things. So even if you're convinced that this is going to be the right thing to do, we'll try that, but we'll also try other things.
Yeah.
And when you're putting that sort of on people that you're going to direct them in that sense, then it's important that they also feel committed to the company and not just sales itself. So I think that was important. And then patience, and over, I would say, 6 months, we built up a way of selling the product, which also involved maturing the product. The product became more ready for an easier path to onboard into the product, which meant now we could offer a free trial. We could let people try the product before they bought it. That helped a lot.
Great position to be in.
That helped a lot, right?
How involved was marketing at the table? Because when you've got sales transitioning from the founder, and marketing's been hired, there are some assumptions about messaging. But when you start interacting with the sales team and they're interacting with clients one-to-one, you learn a lot more. So how did that interplay take place, and what were some of the outcomes of the interplay between sales and marketing during that phase?
So I think it was pretty much what you said. We got started on.
That's a good leading question, I guess, then, right? Sorry about that.
I think we did something that we should probably have done before. And you should continue to do it. We got started on sort of thinking more practically about the positioning of the product, working with that, determining, because we went from maybe not being razor sharp on what the value proposition was to more sort of clear cut. This is the value proposition. Maybe not forever, but at least now this is the value proposition. This is how we go to market now. So that was a key thing. I would say because Stefan, who is the CMO, was a co-founder and also part of these initial sales. So he was doing sales also. So it means that he had a good, he's in a privileged position as a founder and a marketer. So knowing the persona we're selling to super well. So I think it's a good way of building out sort of an understanding of how do you actually sell the product?
Yeah. How many employees do you have now?
We're at 40 people now.
Okay. Yeah. And what's the breakdown of sales and marketing to, operations to admin to engineering?
We're 50% tech and product.
Okay.
So it is product heavy business, and then maybe 10% admin and me, and then the rest is sales and marketing.
God, that's great.
Yeah.
So you've talked about scaling, and of course, idea moves to validation, moves to scaling, leads to growth, right? And so you're scaling right now, and you're scaling a business in an economy where most VCs or investment banks are pulling back funding. What is top of your mind right now regarding the next phase of growth for the business?
So I think we're working on a couple of things. So one thing is, like you said, the shift in the economy also means that selling has become much harder. I think a lot of people are experiencing that. And where wanting a feature or finding something interesting could actually drive purchase of a piece of software, that's not the case anymore. Nobody really wants to buy a piece of software unless they see some serious return. But
your Dreamdata.
Yeah, but I would say we went, talking about positioning, we went quite heavily to market on sort of revenue attribution,
right?
Which is a feature. I mean, attribution is just a feature. It's just is a super valuable feature, but in itself, it's not a use case. It's not value for a business. Like nobody, you don't have revenue attribution. You're probably doing pretty well, right? As a person. So it's not like you have to understand why you need it. But anyway, lots of people were actually interested in buying that feature, and some just for the feature. They would just buy the feature. And we were quite happy to just sell the feature, and made it quite easy. But that's not the case anymore. Like so sales, especially coming into this year, got super hard. We saw that deals sort of slowed down. We had nice, the buildup of our pipeline was really good, but it took a long time to close deals. So deals were delayed, and we didn't win deals at the same rate we would normally win deals. And I think our analysis was saying, okay, hey, nobody really wants to buy a feature anymore. You need to, it's not rocket science. You need to focus on the use cases and the value.
The solution, right?
Yeah, you need to think about how this is going to create value for the company you're selling to. What are the use cases you're going to solve, and how is that going to? How can you build that into a nice business case for the customer, so that they can see value in it? Because we were seeing that our price point is sort of starting at $10,000 annually and then going up to 6 digits and more. And even small deals would require approval from a CFO or a CEO, or it got quite hard to sell. So we are, I would say, transitioning our way of selling out of the sort of feature-oriented way of selling, where we would really focus a lot on explaining the feature, demoing the feature, letting people trial the feature. And then we would, some of the people that we did this to, they saw the value and they loved it and they bought it, but some didn't. And then they didn't. I think for us, it's about sort of selling that value instead, selling the use cases instead, and helping those people that don't just magically see how beautiful the feature is, right?
Well, you bring a point up that I think is so important. And we've worked with over 1,200 startup brands since the company was founded in 1980. And I would say of the tech clients that we've worked with, 9 out of 10 believe the product will sell itself. And because it's typically an engineer starting the business, and what they know are the features, what the product does, that's where they're comfortable talking. We have shifted every single brand that we've worked with from messaging about not what we do, but how it benefits the buyer, and more importantly, why they should care, and how it ultimately can impact the business short term and long term. So you're learning this along the way. You've got a marketing team. They may have pushed back, they may not have. What is your advice to the marketing leaders who are working with the very, very intelligent engineers who want to lead with feature, and marketing saying, we need to lead with customer first, with what's going to benefit the customer? What advice do you have to those individuals? Listen to marketing? No.
I think anyone in product and marketing and sales should be spending a lot of time with customers. And I think a key thing is also taking time to talk to customers where you don't really have an agenda outside of learning what, when you're a startup, like we are, you should think of every time somebody buys your product, it's a piece of magic. Because our competitors are HubSpot and Adobe, and they're massive brands. So why would you want to buy a product from a 40-person company in Copenhagen that just raised Series A? What is the magic that made you decide to purchase from that company over these sort of huge established brands, you'll never get fired from, you won't get fired if you're buying Adobe or HubSpot, right?
Right.
Brands. You could get fired for buying from Dreamdata because we're a small company. So why are you buying? And you need to care immensely about this. Like, figure out what is it that you're doing that is so magical that people want to buy from you.
Right.
And I think that goes for marketers and product people, leading engineers,
All the
founders.
above. Why are people buying from you right now?
So people I would say there's a bunch of things. So it's a lot of the products that would be competing against us don't really work for B2B. So they have, and now it's coming into features, right? Because you're buying into the use cases and the value, which is automation, it's optimization of your business, it's driving ROI. So that's the sort of value and use case side of it. But what's differentiating is the features.
Right.
That's how I see it. So what are the features that are differentiating and making it, like, what are the valuable differentiated features? So it's like working in a B2B space. So we're not counting people. We're thinking about buying committees. We're thinking about accounts. We're taking seriously that you're selling to companies. So I think that's a fundamental thing. Because if you're optimizing your ad spend and you're looking at people and you're a B2B, you're doing a poor job. Because you're looking at your ad spend here, somebody's coming in here, but the guy buying is another one. So you can never optimize.
Connect the dots there.
You need to connect the dots in the model that respects the account. And then the other thing is, well, if you're a B2C company, it's a lot of B2C companies, it's reasonable to say, okay, I'll buy an ad, somebody comes to my website, they buy, great. It's easy. It's also quite short, and the number of touches is manageable. But if you are a B2B company, the number of touches from when somebody shows interest in your product until they bought, it's in the hundreds for many products, right?
Right.
And you need to take that into account when you're thinking about optimizing your business. So if your product if the product you're using for this doesn't do that, again, you're sort of not optimizing in a good way. You're not getting the ROI out of the product you're using there.
Yeah.
And there's a bunch of other things, but these are fundamental things. Also, let's say if you are, we typically sell into slightly larger businesses, sort of like top of mid-market, small enterprises are a good space.
Right.
A lot of our customers, they do event marketing, they do paid, they do organic social, they do content, they might do a bit of product. So like BDR, like there's a lot of things going on. And if you want to optimize, you need to have something that looks at all of it. Because if you're missing, let's say, all of the BDRs and the event marketing, well, you don't actually know the value of that, then you can't optimize. Right?
Yeah.
So you need to have a view of the entire go-to-market to actually do proper optimization.
Yeah. And I think that existing headache is in most products out there right now. And I love the fact and the meaning behind Dreamdata and ultimately what you can do to make those marketers' lives more accurate, quite frankly, when it comes to reporting and understanding really what is and is not working. So we got off on a major tangent there. And the original question, I love tangents, but the original question was really about scaling in this economy. Where is your head right now regarding the next phase of growth for the company? And, is it going to take some outside investment? Where is your head surrounding all of that?
So I'd say we came out of fundraising, so we have money for the next sort of phase of growth.
Good.
We ramped up our sales team. We will continue to ramp that up somewhat. But the goal really there is to, when you ramp up, sort of, you come into Series A, you're basically demonstrating that you have sort of some proof of scalability, but now you actually have to do it.
Yeah.
That's really what you want to do. You want to go from 2, 3, 4 salespeople to 10, 12, 15 people and see sort of meaningful performance from those people, right? So you want to be able to do that. And that's both in the sales team, but it's also demand that needs to come in there, because they're not gonna magically just, somebody needs to help them connect with the market.
Right.
Like a scaling of that sort of demand side of our commercial motion. And then, of course, we grew quite aggressively, and now we have 100 customers. So how do we service these customers well? If you're a SaaS business, you always care a lot about how can you grow the size of these customers. So how can you build more product that can create more value for the customer so that they can pay you more. So
Right.
those are fundamental things, like figuring out what is the product that we want to build to help our customers better. And I think one of the things we do, because let's say again, you have large ad budgets, you have lots of campaigns, even with a great product like ours, where everything is connected, it's not obvious what you're going to do, right? If you're running 100 campaigns on Google Ads and 25 on LinkedIn, and you're doing 25 events every year, okay, what are you actually going to do? So I think we are building product that helps sort of make some of these decisions for you.
Yeah, I think it's great. I really do. And, it's as you're scaling the business in a down economy, you've got money in the bank, which is always a great, great feeling. And what you've just described here are a lot of customer touch points and feedback and constant iteration and, insights from them, which to me says that you're a very customer-centric company. What have you done from a methodology standpoint to prove customer centricity one-on-one with the customers, or even behind the scenes, from a marketing development standpoint?
Good question. So I think we encourage everybody to engage with customers. I think it's something that can go very wrong in companies, that a certain team will own the customer relation and sort of guard customers from other people in the company. So we make it
that ownership thinking.
Yes, and it can be very bad. Encourage people to sort of insist on the ability to talk to customers. And this, of course, sales typically doesn't have a hard time talking to customers, and account management also find it quite easy. The teams that can be sort of restricted in access can be marketing, product, tech. They can sometimes be squeezed out. And I think having a culture where it's natural that those teams also interact with customers and actually talk to customers, like what I described, to try to figure out why are they buying, what are the problems that they actually have. Could we be solving other more exciting problems than the ones we are solving, right?
Yeah. I think the best external marketing language comes from marketers talking to customers and having them tell you the story and develop the language that is meaningful for ultimately new customers to have those aha moments and those emotional epiphanies about the brand and feel that it's something that they should give a try. Have you seen marketers, the marketing team's role expand on that when it comes to really understanding the buying impetus?
Yeah, I think what we do is basically connect with customers after sales, interview them, try to work out why did they buy. So I think that is, and that can be, it is typically the marketing team. It could also be me. I'm not on the marketing team, but I could also do it.
I love that. I love that you're still engaged with the team, with the customers like that. I mean, it's probably very, very meaningful. And, that's like a founder's mindset, right? And you talked about this early on, where you're interacting with the customers day in and day out. You ultimately can hire marketing, then you can hire sales, and then you remove yourself from it a little bit. But guess what? You can miss it. That client interplay you can really miss it. I love the fact that you're involved in that.
I think it's super important, and I think it makes. I would also say that building a company is about the customers. Of course, it's also a business, and that's also exciting. But in the end, it has to work for. If it's not doing anything for the customers, then we'll just do something else, right? There's no point in spending all this time and then not, like, it has to be impactful, why not? Why spend your time on something that doesn't move the needle for anybody? Even if from a business standpoint is great, there has to be the other side, which is that it means something to someone. It doesn't have to be giant meaningful, but at least it has to be meaningful for the people we work for, with the other customers.
That's great. I should say, what have you experienced thus far that you would never repeat again?
I think there are quite a few things, but I think one of the big things is, I think we came in with a bit of a misunderstanding of what focus meant. So we would initially think, okay, we actually initially, when we did sort of the first decks, it was quite focused. And then when we went to work, it got quite unfocused. We were targeting B2B companies, which was just way too broad.
A little broad. Yeah.
And I think that came with, some cases of selling where the product just wasn't appropriate, because we were not ready for that type of B2B company and that size of B2B company. So I would say, basically, like, ideal customer profile, I would, if anybody asked me for advice, I would really work with that and be more focused than we were. And try to be as narrow as possible and not confuse sort of, when you're doing this venture journey, you'll meet venture capitalists and they want like a huge market. And you also want a huge market because you don't want to build a product for just 10 people. You want a huge market, but that doesn't mean that you can't have a very, very tiny ICP initially, just as long as you know that you can expand it. So I think that I would change, and that could have made the journey, like the first 12 months of the journey could have been more productive, right? There was a lot of painful learnings.
Something that we find with a lot of the very, very early stage companies that we're working with is marketing doesn't necessarily need to be, a salaried position at that stage when you are even defining those early jobs to be done, analysis and customer insights analysis, so on and so forth. And a lot of people think, oh my, I'm going to stay away from that. That's marketing's job. And it really isn't in a lot of companies very early on. I think that if the technology team and the founders can really define specifically who that core customer is, or the aspirational customer, based on a lot of these early interviews, then it really sets up sales and marketing to be very, very successful downstream.
Totally. I mean, the fact that you haven't hired a marketer doesn't mean that you're not doing it.
That you can't do it. Exactly. Yeah, I agree. I mean, and that's what people should not shy away from, is it doesn't take a marketer to get that done.
It's about owning up to it and saying, okay, I'm actually doing it, because if you pretend you're not doing it, you're basically just doing a very poor job. You're just doing it. I mean, you are like selling to some people. That's your ICP. You just didn't define it. So it's a very weak definition, right?
Yeah. So let's pretend we're 5 years downstream and I'm having you back on the show, and you've got 1,500 customers and a gazillion team members at that stage. What are you going to want to talk about?
I think I would really want to talk about this revenue automation piece that I was talking about, and how we have helped move B2B companies in that direction. I think that is what excites me. That would be exciting for me. Also, I would love to be in a position where, right now, we're a small product, so we're connecting to other people's ecosystems. I would love to be sort of a platform for an ecosystem, where we have enough sort of mass that people will gravitate towards our platform and integrate, see that as an ecosystem.
Yeah, I love that, Lars. There's no doubt in my mind that you're not going to achieve all of that. And I'm going to put it in my electronic tickler right now that we're going to talk in 5 years And we're going to talk about all these success that you've achieved between 2023 and 2028. I deeply appreciate your insights today, your wisdom share, and just all the off the cuff laughter here and there, but just the comments and the learnings that you've shared really just goes to show how vulnerable you've been. And I appreciate that. It's very, very authentic. And there's no doubt in my mind that you are not going to achieve greatness. Thank you so much for your appearance on the Integrate and Ignite podcast.
Thank you, Lori. It was great being on the show.
This episode is complete. Head over to avocetcommunications.com for more ways to scale and grow your business. And be sure to tune in regularly for insights and motivation with host Lori Jones and her guests on the Integrate and Ignite Marketing Podcast.